Okay, here we go. I've been doing a lot of research the last 48 hours, synthesizing what I could learn. There's a lot going on. I'm down here at Cape Cod. Our family's home. It's a pretty nice place. It gave me a chance to do a lot of work. Trying to figure out what's really going on, what's the latest science. I mean, we should start with the facts. The facts are that we've got a new virus to humans that's got a lethality somewhere between, 1 and 3%, I would say. It's changing all the time depending on how many people get tested. We know the rate of spreading is pretty high. The R0, as it's called, is between 2 and 4. That means for every person who gets it, they pass it on to another 2 or 4 people. That means in the US we're doubling at about every 6 days. What that means by the end of April, US will have about 1 million cases. By May 7th, we'll probably have about 2 million, and then by the middle of May, we'll have another 4 million. So this is a very serious matter, and one of the reasons that I'm down here at our place is with my family, is we just don't want to be part of the spread. I can do a lot of my work from home, and hopefully all of you that can work from home are doing so and not going out and potentially catching this. The incubation period's about 4 to 5 days. You can have no symptoms for the first period, but you're also infectious. This particular virus has a huge, what we call a viral titer, T-I-T-R-E, which means that tens of thousands of viruses are in every droplet that you will be spreading, not just by sneezing, but by touching your face, licking your fingers, touching things. These viruses, unfortunately, can stay on metal for about 24 hours. They can also stay on plastic for at least a couple of days, even longer. So this is something you have to watch out, not just being around people, but touching surfaces. Try not to touch surfaces. If you do, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. I know you know this already. A lot of people are talking about flattening the curve, right? So if we don't try to slow down the spread and we all touch each other and still shake hands and kiss and go to work, the curve will go massively up and will overwhelm the healthcare system. That means people won't get ventilators. That means more people will die. So flattening the curve really just means that we're spreading out the time that we are catching this. But what often isn't spoken about, because it's pretty scary, but let's be frank, this virus isn't going away anytime soon. I think somewhere between a third to 75% of us will catch this. And what scientists like to call the area under the curve isn't changing. If you look at the spike versus the slow burn rate, the number of people, the area under the curve is still the same. China has slowed down the rate of this, and actually they're claiming victory, but actually unless all visitors to China are prevented, it's unlikely, then it's just going to come back, and that's the same here. That doesn't mean that we should just let it take over. Clearly, we can save a lot of elderly people's lives if we slow this down and slow the rate that we all catch it. But eventually, we have to have herd immunity. What that means is enough of us have caught it and are now resistant that our cells can attack it if it comes back, that we won't pass it along, and that R0 will go down to 0. But unless we wipe this virus off the face of the planet, which we cannot do anymore, we are going to live with this. And the slower it spreads, the longer we are going to live with it, unfortunately. But the longer we can push this out, if we can do this for the next 9 months to a year, we have a chance of having medicines that might be available. And in about 18 months, a vaccine might work. We're not sure. The first drug that looks promising, it's in clinical trials. The clinical trials started fairly recently, about a few weeks ago, but they're going to take a long time to actually to pan out. So there's also no guarantee they'll work. And actually, the reason for not rushing this into people immediately across the country, even if we had it, is that it can be dangerous. It turns out that a monkey study with the first coronavirus, SARS number 1, actually made it worse. And so by making a vaccine that targeted the spike protein that allows the virus to enter the cells, those monkeys actually were worse off if they'd been vaccinated. That doesn't mean vaccines are all bad. Of course, we survive because of vaccines. Most of us are alive because of vaccines. But it does mean we have to be extra careful that we aren't causing more harm than good. So what are the other treatments that are out there? Well, the one that Gilead's making, it's probably the best one. It's called remdesivir. It probably has a 50-50 chance of working, and we'll see. Right now, doctors in the US, I'm told by my colleagues, are using this off-label, and this needs to be verified, but apparently things look promising for that. The other things that people are trying are chloroquine. So chloroquine is a anti-malarial drug, fairly cheap one, but I'm getting conflicting results or data from my research. There's a couple of clinical trials from China that said this looks really promising, but actually I think mostly from people from Stanford are telling me now that they don't think that that's the cure that they're looking for, and they're using it less and less. And there's another treatment that was in a couple of papers I read from China, translated from Chinese, that used steroids. Now, here's a very important point. I'm told reliably by the World Health Organization and by doctors, again, out on the West Coast, that steroids are not to be used. Now, any doctor who's watching this, please verify with this. I'm not a doctor, I'm just a researcher who's able to read papers and collate data. But anything that I say on this video, please do check on that before any doctor does anything with the patient. Of course, this is not medical advice. I have a PhD in biochemistry and genetics, but I'm not an immunologist. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that I've come up with. One of the things I've researched is that we could actually have an underlying process that's going on. Now, what we know actually is that the virus gets into red blood cells and destroys red blood. It seems to, or at least predicted to, knock the iron out of the heme in the blood. And what that may do is actually make it even worse. So if you cannot breathe well, just trying to get the oxygen into your system is made even harder by the virus. And there are a couple of genes that do that. Mainly it's the gene number 1 and number 8 in the viral genome. And those are the two ones that seem to be mutating the fastest and evolving. So if the virus comes back later from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere when we have winter again, October probably, it would come back, then these are the genes that might be altered and might actually change the way the disease is behaving. On what doesn't work, let me just say the various drugs that are used for antivirals. So Tamiflu is being tested. We're not sure if that's working. And ganciclovir, which is used against particularly Coxsackie virus, doesn't seem to work. So that's where we're at with that. One interesting thing that was in one of the Chinese papers that I read was that there are some sugars glucose that binds to your red blood cells, the hemoglobin in the red blood cells, and that's called HbA1c. So diabetics, people who have high blood sugar, have more HbA1c, and that may, at least according to the scientists, be one of the reasons why diabetics are more susceptible to lethality from coronavirus. I do want to mention about how to stay safe. What this looks like, and actually in Peter Attia's podcast, Peter Attia has done some amazing podcasts recently, and Instagram videos. What he's been saying, and his experts, is that this virus behaves more like norovirus, and that jibes with what I'm saying or seeing and reading. The ability to catch it from surfaces and seemingly from food on cruise ships is very different than influenza. And I think that surfaces are going to turn out to be a major mode that we catch this virus from. These surfaces are called fomites. If you've heard that term, that's what that means, just a surface that viruses and infectious agents sit on. If you've ever seen the Mythbusters episode called Contamination, and I highly recommend you do look at that, it's on YouTube, you can see how quickly liquids that come out of someone's nose can spread throughout a room if you're not careful. But if you are careful, you can actually be quite free from those viral particles. So I just want to end on this. I'm doing a lot more research every day. I'm posting on Twitter as well as Instagram. A lot of this news is disturbing. A lot of people are in denial, actually, that this is coming. I have got some food with my family. We probably can last for about 2 to 3 weeks at least. And I think that's about the time that we're going to need to be able to stay indoors, especially those of us who are middle-aged. Particularly, I want to say that young people are also part of this. We are relying on young people to not be part of the herd, to not get infected and not spread this to everyone else. So even if you're not going to die, be aware that your actions could cause other people to die. And this is not a joke anymore. This is the real deal. This is not a Hollywood movie anymore. This is actually happening. So I want to sign off now. I want to thank you all for supporting this channel over the last year or so. When I wrote Lifespan, the book, I realized that extending lifespan means nothing if we're wiped out by a virus. And I wrote about that and what could happen if a virus like this one rolled out. And unfortunately, it's now upon us, just a few months after Lifespan was released onto bookshelves. What we're in right now is a situation where governments should act very quickly. A day or two can make a massive difference to people's lives. And those of us in the community, let's all play our own part. Stay away from people, wash your hands, don't touch surfaces. But most of all, be safe, everyone. Signing out.